Hi, guys, and a very warm welcome to the Vibes Hub with Mel podcast. With me, Mel Miendo, this March 2025. I'm so excited to be back here on the podcast, and we are going to have a very exciting episode. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. The subscribe button is right below you on YouTube. Please subscribe so that we can continue to bring you all these episodes on YouTube. So today, for this month of March, his name is Silas Kiriinya. He is a consultant psychologist, and we'll be getting to hear about what he's been doing, some of the trends he's been seeing, especially with counseling men and even women, especially because it still is International Women's Month, as we have a whole month. I don't know about you guys. Yeah. International Women's Day inakwanga lini?
You are that.
No, Iko. Yeah.
We rarely even celebrate it.
We need to change this narrative.
And that's why we need this conversation.
Exactly. It's me. You have been a psychologist for how long now?
This is my 11th year.
Why did you choose this as a career? Is it something you've always wanted? Is it like, do you have a specific area you counsel in? Maybe you can tell me about that.
I think for me, psychology really is not something that I thought about even growing up. In fact, I'd never met any psychologist until the time I decided to do psychology myself. But what happened is, I don't know, by God's grace or something, I found myself in a position where people would come to me for small conversations here and there. Things that probably they cannot tell other people, they would come to me. I remember one of those scenarios is when I was 17 years old. A couple came.
And
17 years old.
Silas.
I was very involved in the church, so I don't know, they saw something. So they came to me and told me, our marriage is not doing so well. We would want you to come and pray with us. But I think we also had a conversation with them after that. And a few years back, after that, I met this lady and tells me, thank you so much for saving my marriage.
Wow.
Now, I actually don't understand what happened, what I said, I don't understand. But somehow, we saved their marriage. But also when 17? I went to high school as well, I became the school head boy. And as a school captain, you deal with a lot of issues.
Yeah.
And part of what we're dealing with is drug and substance use in school. And usually, as a leader, when you get someone who is smoking or someone is drinking, you would report them. But for me, I wouldn't report them. I would sit down with them and have a conversation with them, and they would transform their lives. Then when I was doing also my undergraduate, which I did in philosophy, I had so many students coming to speak to me, and later on they actually elevated me and became their president of the Students Association.
Yes.
And again, I started encountering, so many cases, but I didn't know up to that point what it is that I was dealing with. I was thinking I'm just advising people. I started realizing most of the cases I was dealing with, they actually undername depression, bipolar disorder, and all these other things. So when I noticed that, I realized this is an area that I want to focus on. And that's how I found myself doing masters in counseling psychology. The beautiful thing is I was doing it for others, but I came to realize actually it benefited me a lot. Because personally also, I had a lot of struggles myself. And I'll be sharing that probably later on as we go on.
So one of the things I'd like to mention, because you've even mentioned it as well, that you finally saw that it was helpful for you as well. Would you like to take me through that journey? What happened?
Okay. Now, I think today I can place that in a mental health kind of field. Because what happened to me growing up, I grew up with a dad who was very alcoholic himself. He drank a lot to a point that, honestly, if he went for a drink, they would give him a quarter of a glass. Because if they put a full glass, his hands were shaking. We call them tremors. So there was a lot of tremor, and so he would pour everything. So they would give him a quarter of alcohol. Then he drinks that, and actually stabilizes almost instantly. And then from then on, he can drink for 2 days or whatever, stays for 3 days even without coming home. And of course, because of that, also he became very violent. And so we faced a lot of violence in the family. And as a young boy, I think I started slowly disliking him. In fact, the right one should be hating him. I started hating him, and so I was trying to find ways in which I can actually equalize, like fight him and all that. But I was so small. So the only wish I had is probably get some money, buy a gun, shoot him, something like that.
For real?
Yes, and a lot of
was
bitterness.
that bad?
A lot of bitterness.
Yeah.
And so everything else I was doing in my life basically was as a reaction to what my dad was doing. Until when I was done, I actually even dropped from school, primary school, 4 years, like at different periods, like in class 4, class 6, class 7, and class 8 again. So I dropped like a whole year. But then I got some employment somewhere as a young boy like that, because I didn't want to continue with anything else, high school and all that. So I got employment, and the place I was employed was not good. Yeah, they really mistreated me. And that mistreatment reawoken something in me. In fact, that is the first time I asked myself personal question. I asked, for how long will I be this way? And so at that point, I realized I needed to do something, because all along, everything else I did was to react to my father. So if my father told me, Silas, go and take care of our cattle, then that day I go to play. If he tells me to go to school, that day I will go and spend it with my friends. Like I wouldn't go to school. But this time round, I realized if I go on this way, I'm messing up myself. And then slowly by slowly, I reformed. I went back to school by myself, and a lot of other things happened. So from there is when I realized some of the reactions that we have, they are not really because we are bad people, but sometimes you have been through a lot of traumas. And so because of that experience, I think that's the wisdom that people started seeing, because they could see I completely transformed, became a totally different person.
All right, and let me just ask you, because I'm sure even people who are watching this, and probably they have experienced it themselves, or they know their family members who are experiencing it, or their loved ones who are experiencing it. Sometimes people ask, what's the one thing that made you, make that decision to reform? Because is it something you just wake up one morning and say, today, nimeamua, I'm going to be a different man, or I'm going to be a different person? Or is it like a step-by-step process? How was it for you?
I think for me, it's not really, there was nothing step by step. I think for me, it was a moment of reawakening. Like, I had hit the bottom, the rock bottom. So I didn't know what to do. I knew I'm going to die. I was actually quite suicidal at that point. But, because there wasn't a lot of conversations about suicide. So somehow I wouldn't have actualized it. But somehow I thought about it several times. So I had hit the rock bottom. And so I knew the only thing I needed to do is, what am I going to do to change my life? And I think within that, of course, and also some very powerful Christian experiences. And I think those experiences also transformed me. I realized actually I could change, I could become a better person. Because all along, I felt unloved. I felt neglected. I felt I didn't have a mentor. Yes, I was 16. And what was happening, I started earlier. Actually, I think I started using substance when I was 9. I think for me, the moment of reawakening is when I encountered this Christian. But also I had asked myself, like, for how long will I be this way? And then almost that week that I got home after the employment is the very week I encountered them. So when I encountered them, I think they started changing my perception of life. They started actually showing me genuine love, that I didn't have to work for love anymore. Like, I couldn't be loved the way I am. And I think that healed a lot of things. Of course, later on, we reconciled with my dad. He also changed. Actually.
Oh, amazing.
Yes, because I think because of transformation, he saw it. And he also transformed his own life.
So there's even a second chance, even from your story, because I wanted to ask you, what happened with your dad? Because especially with people who have gone through, such experiences with their fathers, they never go back to reconcile sometimes. And sometimes it's because of just the happenings of life. Sometimes it's your own decision. You're like, nah, me umzai, I don't want his story. So it's good to hear that you reconciled with your dad, and he changed as well. He transformed his life as well. Silas, wow, this is deep. I'm like, what? But I'm grateful that you are able to speak about this very boldly, because it also helps other people, and that's what I want us to go to, because you've been in this field for 11 years. Tell me, what have you been seeing? What's happening with especially the young men, because even we've talked about it's as a joke, we're like, International Women's Month. It was Women's Day, but it's a whole month by the way. Guys are still celebrating. This week they're still celebrating. Next week they'll still be celebrating.
And we are buying flowers.
Exactly.
And people's out for dinner.
For the whole month of March, there's something happening. But with no international hata tujui kama kuna International Men's Day. Usually here it's the same day as it's World Toilet Day.
Imagine now.
Imagine. I'm just like, imagine all that focus to the women, which is amazing because I'm a woman, yes, and I'm grateful for that because it has empowered me as well. But then who are we being empowered for? You know, where are the men?
Yeah.
So tell me, what have you been seeing with the young men?
I would say with young people, what they lack really is a sense of direction. Direction in the sense of mentorship, because everything else and most of the things are focused on girl child. I think there's a lot of that. There's a lot of scholarships that are available, opportunities that are available. And so you realize young people, especially men, they are not getting really that kind of support. And you can look at it even in the family setup.
Yeah.
When you have a girl, everybody is mommy, 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 darling, darling, sweetheart, sweetheart, sweetheart. But boys oftentimes it's like, you have to find a way of manning up.
You have to fight your way through.
Men fight, you're a man, so you have to learn how to fight. And so one of the things that I realize is they lack that sense of direction, and particularly mentorship, because mentorship is very essential. So when a human being is allowed to grow by themselves without proper direction, then they look like a gazelle. And so when you're a gazelle, whichever direction you go is the right direction, Yeah. And then you encounter difficulties in life, you don't know who to talk to. And so you find yourself, you're being told you have to man up, but you've not been given the skills to actually enable you to man up. So that's one of the biggest challenges that I'm facing with young people. But also, young people lack resilience. Lack resilience, not only young people, not only men, even girls as well.
Yeah.
We lack resilience, especially in our time. Why? Because for us growing up,
Gen Z wako nini? Gen Z wako like, we got this, we are here, they don't have resilience.
They don't have resilience.
For real?
Pick an individual and try to see how they deal with stress. They will drink.
Yeah.
Get depressed. Think of suicide. Go into social media. So that means you don't have internal capacity to withstand what is happening in your life. So when they come as a crowd, you feel empowered. You feel like you're not alone. You have a lot of energy, you have a lot of power, you can change things. But when you're left on your own, you're not. But we have made a contribution as parents. And even the generations that have been there before, we have made a contribution. Look at us. Growing up, probably you're walking a distance to go to school, to fetch water, to go look for firewood, to go and graze, take care of your father's cattle, whatever else. Those things, somehow they may look like child labor and whatever else, but they actually train you how to be resilient in life. They train you how to have that sense of.
It's like having this kind of skills from when you're really young.
Yeah.
So you grow up with.
Grow up.
Yeah.
I look at my children; they have never skipped a meal since they were born. My firstborn now is 11 years. He has never skipped a meal. Okay, so he doesn't know the day he goes to campus and he doesn't have money.
What to do?
He doesn't have lunch. He doesn't know what to do.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Okay, so that's you build resilience through experiences and not through theory. So that's another area that young people are lacking, and that's why they are using substance as a way of running away from the pain that they're experiencing and trying to deal with the loneliness and all that. But also the other thing I should mention is loneliness, actually. Because there's a lot of individuality. You're living alone, isolating yourself, because you lack people that you can have intimate conversations
and be real with.
You know why? Yeah. Because when we meet here as men, either we are drinking, so the focus is the drinking. We are smoking or we are celebrating, but we are not having intimate conversations. And from time to time, I'm on social media as well.
Yeah.
So we are here, two of us, but I'm in social media. So there is no deep connection. I'm connected to gadgets, many of them, but I'm rarely connected to real people. And that's another challenge that young people are facing.
Let me tell you, it's quite interesting the way you say it, because most of the time, like the idea that we have of this generation is that these guys are coming, these guys are ready, these guys are, like strong, these guys will do great things. And we pray that they will, but then we forget that this is the crowd.
It's a crowd.
What about the one person? That, like the individuals, as you're saying. Are we focusing on the individuals, or we're just focusing on the masses, Oh wow. You've given me something to think about.
Mob psychology actually as one of its tenets, they call it in anonymity, or like you don't have a name. Okay, so in a crowd you lose your name, so you can do whatever you want. you feel empowered. You are not. No one can identify you. It feels like you're almost unbeatable. So that empowers someone who doesn't have internal locus. Internal locus means no internal stability.
Yeah.
So when you get into a crowd, then you're carried by the crowd. You do what the crowd is saying.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's part of what you're seeing today. Though it's very important for them to do that because it's changing systems that we thought they eternal.
So now we need to focus on them as individuals and not just them as a crowd.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
But it's interesting you say it because I don't know how it is now. You've been in this field for 11 years. I don't know if it's any different right now because, back in the day, guys weren't really into counseling and, like, ukisikia mtu ameenda counseling munaanza kuketi mko like, hey, kwani nini memtendekea, So I don't know, has that changed? Are people now, open to actually say, I'm going to call this psychologist and I need to, just have a sit down with them and tell them what's going on. Is there a difference? Has it gotten better? Are people now more, open with talking to counselors and psychologists?
Yeah, they are much more open. I wouldn't say to the level that we would want really to see because still there are so many men who are committing suicide, who are wallowing into substance as a way of dealing or managing what they are going through. And still we have the traditional way of looking at a man, that you really have to be very strong. You have to overcome everything. You have to be the one who helps others, but you cannot be helped. And of course we know where that is coming from. From the beginning, we were hunters and gatherers. What does that mean? It meant you had to be very strong for you to be able to defend your family. It's actually one of the conversations that I have with men, and I ask this question, is when you're out as a Silas taking care of your family, who takes care of you?
Who takes care of you, yeah.
Okay? So that is the conversation we are trying to engage slowly by slowly, and men are opening up. They are now able to reach out. In fact, I can say maybe before COVID, there were very few men coming for therapy. Maybe I would say I was getting 20% of men. But now it gets to 40, sometimes even to 50%.
Great.
Yeah, because COVID also opened up, a lot in terms of the virtual and the availability of information, particularly on mental wellness, and like the government and systems were focusing actually on mental wellness, and so it became almost like a normal thing. If you're struggling with depression, you can actually reach out for support. If you're struggling with alcohol, you can reach out for support. It became almost like obvious, slowly by slowly. But we are not there yet, I can say so.
Yeah, there's still a long way to go.
So men are still manning up, trying to survive.
But, let me ask you, because I feel like sometimes the manning up, though you're saying it, like the way it used to be back in the day, this is how all the men have been brought up. This is what you're told. This is what you're supposed to be, who you're supposed to be. But then there's a way that men that in this day and age are like, I'm not going to do that. Like I will not be that man. I will not be that person. I'll be my own person. Are you seeing that trend?
I think there's still a lot of theories and conversations out there that you really have to be strong as a man.
You can't have a bad day. Can you have a bad day?
Absolutely, I do.
So when you have the bad day, are you open about having the bad day?
Yes, I'm open because for me now I know. I have a clique of friends, people that I can talk to, people that I can tell what I'm going through.
But not every man has that.
But not every man has that. In fact, what we have is drinking buddies. What we have is hiking buddies. But rarely, or business guys or meetings and whatever. But rarely do we have like an intimate friend who is a man that you can have deep conversations about what you're going through in your life. Not only looking for therapy, but just someone hearing you, because that helps a lot. So I will say we are not yet at the place where a man allows vulnerability, where you can open up and say, I am broken, I'm weak, I need support, I need someone to listen to me. We are not in a place where a man can cry, a place where you wake up today and you feel so depressed that actually you break down in front of your wife, in front of your children.
Silas, for real? Like men can't do that. Today, March 2025, moving forward, you want to tell me there's no space for that?
Absolutely. Look at it. For example, even when it comes to physical pain, like for example, you can tell someone has lost everything. Let's say their house has been demolished or burnt down. So you can see the lady is really like, the wife is all over crying. What will happen to my children? And they are crying publicly. But how many times do you see men crying publicly? Okay, because it means the moment you allow vulnerability, you're actually allowing weakness, which is not true. Because vulnerability is actually a source of strength.
Exactly, yeah.
Is a key resource that enables you to be in touch with your emotions, be in touch with your thoughts, and also reach out for support. Because what men lack is support. Support because the society imagines that a man is a superman, so you can take care of yourself, you can take care of everything. But also because you have been meant to believe that you can't be vulnerable.
Yeah.
You have to really be in control of everything. But how many are in control? We are seeing people committing suicide at workplaces because there's too much pressure. Because you're a human being like every other. In fact, any human being who has a brain, okay, you are susceptible to mental illnesses. You are susceptible to struggles here and there. And so the best thing would be to actually admit that there are bad days. I can wake up, I can lose a job, and I feel depressed because of that. I need to reach out and all that. The other problem that we have is that our identity as men is pegged to our performance. So as long as
and money,
yes,
you know,
that's the thing I'm calling performance.
Yeah.
Because if it's work, then you must earn. If you're not earning,
like
you're
what's
not
your
a man.
status and stuff.
Yes,
yeah,
you're not a man. And so it means if you lose a job, you lost also your manhood, if I can put it so. And so that draws you into identity crisis immediately.
Yeah.
You start isolating yourself. Probably start drinking and start even other risky behaviors that are going to mess up with you.
You know, let me tell you, you know why I ask these questions is because I still have hope that, you know, like things are better, you know, like that men are able to get to spaces and environments where they can be themselves, where they can be open and honest, even with their wives or their partners or, you know, their families. But then it's so sad to hear that that's still not the case, you know.
It is not. We are not saying absolutely that.
Yeah,
there's
like
no progress.
maybe the percentage is
Yes.
very little,
Very
you know,
little.
very minimal. But then, you know, my question would be to you, Silas, since you're the you're the psychologist here. You know, what then should a society? How then should we, you know, like support each other? Because I believe it's two-way, right? It's not just, you know, there's some men who show up for their families. There's some men who don't, you know, completely. There's some men who, you know, like are, you know, the providers and the leaders that they should be. But then there's some men who are not, and completely that they don't want. And so sometimes you'll find the women are complaining and saying, oh, this one. But then the men are also complaining. So if everyone is complaining, what happens?
The other,
You know. So I'm just wondering, in your opinion, how best should we support each other? You know, I know it's International Women's Month, and you know the focus is on the women, and that's great, as I said earlier. But then, what support are we giving to the men? What, in your opinion, what kind of support should we as women give to you men to be the men that, you know, are in a place where you can be the person who God has called you to be? You know. Yeah.
Okay. So I think this begins from birth, socialization. So how do you socialize that young boy growing up? Does that young boy know that they are not better than girls? They are just human beings like everybody else, and probably there are opportunities available for everyone. Okay, such that I can get an opportunity and move on with my life, and doesn't have to define my identity. That is the first place that we need to begin conversations. But also we need to begin conversations that a young boy is also vulnerable, can cry, can break down, can feel lonely, and all these other things. We need to allow them to feel that.
And this is like when they're teenagers, because that's when now they feel like, oh, you know, I'm a
when
man
they are
now,
searching
you know?
for their identity.
Yeah.
That is the key thing. So we have to allow them to be themselves at that point, to realize also they can maybe chant their own way of life. They can explore things here and there by themselves, other than just following what has been existing in terms of cultural practices and all that. So we need to start the conversation there. But also at the same time, even in schools as well,
Yes.
we need really to focus on empowering these young people growing up, young men. We need to empower them. And then, of course, create forums for them. Like, you know, for example, like women, it's very easy to have chamas and have forums where you just meet. I've seen even girls out, like you go to Mombasa and just enjoy yourselves for a week. How many times do you hear men, 5 of them went to Mombasa and they were together for that time?
And it's just them, you know, the women are nowhere. Like, this is men's time.
Yes. So those are the conversations that we need to start having. And then slowly by slowly also to admit that we are weak as men. And because we are weak, we need support. And seeking support is not a sign of weakness. We need actually to realize that as men. Slowly by slowly. We can have these conversations in radio, social media, churches, mosques, wherever we are. We need to have these conversations. But also even in the mental health systems and health systems in general, we need actually to include aspects that support men.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it as it is we have lines that are free and mostly for women, for maybe suicidal people, okay, or for children who are going through something, or women who are battered by their spouses, okay. How many men make calls, to say that I've been battered in my family by my wife, And if that's what you go and share to a police station, maybe, how do they look at you?
Yeah, how do they receive it?
Or
even if you share it with your family,
yes,
what do they tell you?
In fact, immediately you're weak. So those are the conversations that we need to change so that you become a human being like every other. Okay. And if we do that, then I believe men will start reaching out to themselves. We have to kill this stigma slowly by slowly. There's a lot of stigmatization in the process. We need to kill it slowly by opening them up, giving them forums that they can open up. How can women come in and support? Men are not very good at expressing their emotions because probably they have not been given a platform to really open up and share these emotions that they're going through. So it's to help them slowly by slowly. Create a safe space for them that they realize I can actually open up without being judged. I can open up without thinking I'm weak. And so in that kind of support, then a man is able to open up.
Okay. As we wind up, I want us to talk to the fathers. You mentioned about your dad,
yes.
And so many people have that kind of non-relationship with their father. They've experienced so much, and that now moves to them growing up and them becoming men and fathers as well. So I don't know what word you would have for fathers, especially in our generation, because now you see we're talking to the people in our generation. Our dads are in their 80s, and some of them we've been able to reconcile with them. Some of them not, but we still have these men who are now the fathers or the fathers to be. What kind of fatherhood will they, what kind of fatherhood are they entering into? What kind of fathers will they be,
Okay. So for me, I think what I would tell men is, I would say, if you want to heal the world, have a loving dad. If you want to break the world or hurt the world, have a father who is not present emotionally, who is going to hurt the children. Because you are the one who enables the child to create their world. In other words, their worldview. So their whole perception is based on you. So how you treat them, how you view the world, what you communicate when you're with them, that actually determines the worldview they will have. So if you want them to have a worldview of a place where people can have conversations even when they differ, and they can continue having conversations that respect each other. If you want them to have resilience, that you can go through stuff in life and you don't have to drink, or you don't have to punch this or punch that, when they see your emotional regulation, they also learn how to regulate themselves. So what I can say to men is, if you're actually planning to become a dad,
or are a dad already,
heal yourself first. If you're a dad already, begin the journey of healing. Because as long as you have daddy issues yourself, you will always transfer that to the children. Not intentionally. Sometimes you're so loving, but the way you do it is because you are going through something yourself. Look at it this way. Even in something we would call positive, you lacked a lot because your dad was absent. Then you invent into the lives of the children because you don't want them to feel like dad is not there. So what are you doing? You are killing the individuality. They are not able to become a separate entity. They can't have freedom to think for themselves. So you invent their space, and that's not good too. Or, for example, you lacked something growing up, and so you give everything that they ask. So they do not know no. They don't know what no is.
Because it's always been yes. You want this, okay, take. And then now they become spoiled.
They become spoiled, and so the time they will be told no, they don't know how to.
They're like, why are you telling me no?
Okay, so as a dad, work on yourself. Okay. Then number 2, be aware that the impact that you have on your children is an eternal impact. It will be there forever, as long as they live. Yes. Now, for those who have not been able to reconcile with their children, it's good to reach out. Maybe as a father or even a child who is listening to us. you can also go reach out to your dad. In fact, I'm the one who reached out to my father.
Yeah, most of the time we're the ones who reach out
Yes,
to them.
reach out to them and tell them, Dad, I know things have not been okay, but I think it's important we have a conversation. Yeah, we have a conversation, and that conversation can give birth to a lot of other good things.
Yeah.
Because after that, like for me, we had a wonderful relationship with my father thereafter. Yeah.
Amazing.
And that impacted the whole family because also they also started benefiting from this good dad now that he became.
And you didn't burden him with who he was before. Oh, you used to do this. Oh, you used to do that. You allowed yourself to now start afresh, right?
Absolutely, because for me, what I was reacting to is that he didn't love me. So the moment I felt loved, like by God and also by my friends, I just healed from what I was lacking.
Yeah.
And so even him, I didn't have to react anymore. I kind of actually developed a lot of love for him.
Amen.
And we could even sit down and have jokes, and it was very funny. He passed on in 2013.
Oh,
yeah, it was very funny. It was very funny. So you sit down with him and you laugh the entire time. Yeah, he became a very wonderful man. So I'm
amazing. Yeah. So there's hope.
There's hope. Yes, there's hope.
Oh my goodness, this is such an enriching conversation. This is Silas Kiriinya as we are still having this conversation. In my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, we can talk for like hours and hours. But I want to actually ask you guys, as you've watched this, and I know you probably have questions or comments, please write them so that, we can have a part 2 of this, and answer some of those questions that you have in your heart, in your mind, and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know who to ask this. Or especially for you men, please, bring them forward. Send your messages, comment on YouTube or on my social media platforms. And I think we can have a part 2 for this, so that we can move the conversation forward. But this has been so interesting. Thank you, Silas, for your time and for the work you're doing. So guys, as you send in your comments and questions or whatever you'd like to ask us, please remember to write your name as well. Or if you feel like you want it to be anonymous, it's still okay. So there's no problem with that. But you can do that on YouTube as you subscribe to my channel. Do not forget that very important part of subscribing, as you either write on social media, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. Mel Miendo is the name. I'll have it written down there so that you can also go to social media and send in your comments, and we'll get to probably have this session again.
And of course, when people share, for example, they have many questions here and there. The conversation becomes more enriching when you're able to tackle a few issues that people
even for them, they feel like, oh wow, I'm part of this conversation.
Sure.
All right, guys, thank you for watching, and it's been great having you, Silas. Hopefully we'll see him again. If you send your questions, if you don't send now, I don't know when I'll ask him, but please send forth your questions and comments, and we'll definitely get to tackle that with Silas. I'm Mel Miendo. See you on the next one, and thank you again for subscribing. To all my subscribers, asanteni sana, and we will continue to bring you all this kind of amazing and enriching conversations that are for positive societal impact here on the Vibes Hub with Mel podcast. So see you soon.